This is the Vinney White Show on In-Depth Radio, Newstalk 1010.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Vinney White. Nice to be here. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Usually you would hear the beautiful tones of the gorgeous in every possible sense Pei Chen at this hour, but she's away, so you'll have to make do with old Muggins here, Vinney. Vinney White is the name. Tonight, coming up, before 9 o'clock until my official show starts, so between 8 and 9 tonight, we're going to be talking to a few people. First of all, you may have heard of Leave It to Beavers. It's a funny, informative dating, relationship and lifestyle advice talk show for men and women of all ages. And it's fronted by a woman, Sue McCord. And Sue's going to be joining us for a little chat about all things sex, sexiness, and love, of course, as well. Do you need to find love? Are you doing something wrong? Right, relationships. What are they all about? How do they work? Do they? We're cruising up to a 50% divorce rate here in Canada, and most of the Western world for that matter, so, you know, don't feel like it's just us getting it wrong. And that's probably not good, is it? Or is it? Because you could argue in the Dark Ages, where divorce was illegal, that a lot of people had a very unhappy life, and perhaps it's groovy now. But there's one thing that we can all agree on. There is certainly more choice than ever. Now, if you're single, you might not be feeling that way, but that's kind of the problem. Where do you even start? There's internet dating, but now there's Tinder, and then there's like, can I still go and talk to people in pubs? And what happens if you don't drink? And then the social groups, and then once you've found someone sexy that you want to have a little bit of a horizontal jog with, and maybe spend the rest of your days with, looking over a lake and holding hands whilst the dog runs around, and you wear big woolly jumpers and drink hot port and all those lovely things that, just makes me all warm and fluffy inside. If you find someone that you want to do all that stuff with, how do you do it? How do you keep it together? Because it's all very well meeting someone, and we all like a bit of a bonk, if you'll pardon my crass nature for a moment. But once you've got that out of your system, you've got to live with these people. Some of them keep the caps off the toothpaste, for goodness sake. How are you supposed to deal with that? Well, don't you worry. We're going to introduce someone that can help you out. And her name is Sue.
You know what? I was just holding back wanting to say stuff to everything you were saying. That was hilarious.
Good. Well, it's a good job you're here, because there's a lot of people here in this city that are lost. Let's get through a few of your credentials before we warm you up, Buttercup.
Okay.
You have a TV show, Leave It to Two Beavers. I would describe it as funny and informative dating, relationship, lifestyle advice talk show. You also have a website, yinyangtalk.com, that's all about dating, relationships and lifestyles. Before we get to ask you some advice, could I be perhaps just slightly brash and say, what puts you in a position to give other people advice? How is it any easier for you?
It's never easy for anybody. The thing is, I am a mature woman with young attitudes. So what's happened is I am here to help other people not have to go through some of the trials and tribulations of the dating, divorce, single mother, all those things that I went through in life. And I've written a book about it. I have been an advice columnist for quite a while, and I've done blogs and a radio. I started out actually with podcasting, kind of like what you're doing here. And then I went into HD video. Isn't that lovely at my age? But I went into HD video so people could see who I was.
It's very noble of you to admit there that you have made mistakes in the past, and it's nice
absolutely.
that you can
That's
actually...
why I'm doing this.
Yeah, so people don't have to go through what you did. Well, Sue, as soon as we come back from this here traffic bulletin, I'm going to start digging your brains, all right?
Uh-oh.
So stand by. And if you've got a question for Sue, you can call us, or her, should I say, on 416-872-1010. Vinney White in for Pei Chen. I'm not sure where she is, but she'll be back in her usual time and slot next week. All right. So, lots of questions from me, and a few have come in on text as well. If you've got questions about your love life, any angle of it, the naughty bits in a horizontal position, which can be quite tricky, or the not so naughty bits when you're vertical and talking, all of those things can be aimed at our guest. She's pretty damn good at this stuff, we reckon. She's just come out with a book called Dear Sybersue. She's an expert writer when it comes to all things relationship, and she's done loads of TV and web. So let's get back on. Hello, Sue.
Hi, I'm here.
I know, you've got quite an attractive voice. So I wonder if that's perhaps in keeping with your whole evocative nature with the ideology of sex.
Well, voice is actually kind of a good thing because when you're talking to somebody initially, if you're talking to them on the phone before you meet them, that is that can be a lure. So that's a positive to have that, right?
Yeah, it is. Another weapon in your arsenal. Right,
Absolutely.
Let's get going with this. This question keeps coming in. I thought it would. It starts quite blatantly, and it sort of skips something that perhaps is quite obvious. It's a guy, and he says, "Don't tell me about internet dating. Don't tell me about Tinder. Tell me what to do when I'm on the date. Why is it that why am I getting consistent problems? I feel like women have too high an expectation." What would you say to this guy?
Is he dating them from the internet?
I don't know. He doesn't say. Let's assume that he is, because so many people are, aren't they?
Okay, well, what I find is happening with a lot of people is the men, it's so confusing right now. This is kind of that stage of the guinea pig where men they don't know what they're supposed to do anymore. They want to bring home the buffalo, so to speak. They still want to be the man. They don't want to be emasculated from some woman who's super strong because she's got the career. She doesn't need a guy anymore. But the problem is what's happening is we're judging each other. We're pointing fingers at each other. If we just went on a date and just stopped judging from the first 5 minutes, the one thing I find that a lot of guys will say, oh, yeah, well, she's super materialistic. But then they choose the type of girl that's beautiful, and you can sort of tell that she's a high-maintenance person just by the way she walks, moves, her attitude. All you have to do is watch a girl for 5 minutes in a restaurant, and you can tell a lot about her by how she treats the server, how she treats people around her. It's really good to pay attention to people in your area when you're out, just even with a group of guys, or you're out with a couple of girlfriends, and just watch for a little bit and see how people interact. Never be afraid to say hi. People are afraid to say hello.
Well, I think that's a peculiar phenomena in the modern world, isn't it? Because it's never been easier to download the Tinder app or go on internet dating, and I believe most of it's free as well. Has that changed the landscape of dating? Is it now slightly difficult to say?
People are lazy.
Right. So if they're in a
absolutely.
supermarket, they say, I probably should say something, but I can't do that. But I'll be safe at home in front of my computer.
But from what that fellow asked you on the text, you do want to do that because you stand out.
Right.
You will be, when he says, well, what can I do? How can I meet like normal people? You meet normal people when you see them in the flesh, not on a screen where they're sometimes pretending. I'm not saying everybody does. And on Tinder, you're flashing through a whole bunch of photos. You're not, I don't even know I don't know much about Tinder. I've never been on it, but I know that it's a bunch of photos and people can sort of flip through it like a magazine.
It is,
and see what they're attracted to. Now, saying that sounds negative, but in the same breath, when you meet somebody in a bar or on the street, the first thing you're looking at is their physical. So I don't consider Tinder a bad thing. I think what happens, people just keep certain things for a rainy day. You know what I mean? There's too much, and they keep...
Yeah.
They're not focusing on one sort of situation. It's like, oh, next, so I can do better.
Right. And they're not throwing enough mud at the wall and letting some stick because they're only using that and not saying hello to people when they're in supermarkets, etc.
Yeah, they're getting a list and holding on to the list. I've had friends tell me that they've had people send them messages like 6 months to 8 months later. So how are you? What's going on? And to me, that would irritate the hell out of me that somebody forgot about me for 6 months and then they come back. What? Now you want me to, now I'm good enough for you?
Well, this is a good point because there is this whole school of thought, which I personally don't agree with, that you have to play a bit of a game when you start dating. So, for example, you don't want to be too keen and you want to make sure you don't text back and perhaps you don't use the phone because using the phone would be very intense, but a couple of little texts wouldn't hurt. Do you believe in any of that? Is there such a thing as a game to play?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Vinney, because what happens is the trouble with the texting now. People are texting each other 15 times before they're actually meeting. That's bad because every time you look at a text, if you let 3 people see one text, they're all going to interpret it probably a little bit differently.
Absolutely. There's no tone in text. Which we
No,
all had that situation where someone looks
people-
at us and says, "Oh, I can't believe Shirley said that. She said she'll be there at 6." No, she said she'll be there at 6. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's difficult to interpret that.
Yeah, it's so true. So I recommend, and I highly, highly recommend that you go out, you be yourself. So you go, let's just say, forget how you met the person. You're going on your first date.
Right.
You never, ever give too much information. And I'm talking to women on this one. Women are so quick to say their worst faults, like, oh, God, I've got one boob bigger than the other, or whatever, right? Don't say your faults. Just enjoy the evening. Don't stare at other people around the room. Sit down, look each other in the eye, ask normal questions. Don't have a checklist that's like, the size of a book. You know what I mean? Some people have huge checklists.
It's true. The term deal breaker has been bandied around in recent years. Oh, my God, if he's got a cat, that's a deal breaker. Oh, my God.
Exactly.
You're allowed some caveats. For example, if you're a non-smoker, you probably don't want to go out with someone that smokes 40 a day, do you?
Exactly. But, people that ask about kids and all that on the first date, I've actually, I'm married again, so I have been divorced, I'm remarried, so I can talk about that stuff too, right? But, oh God, I just lost my train of thought. So what was happening when I was, looking and meeting guys and stuff like that, I would sit there and go, why are they wanting me to go meet their family on the second date? Why do I have to meet 5 of their friends on the third date?
Do people do that? That's crazy.
But people do it, and this is on my side. I'm the female, so this was guys doing it. And I think part of that was because I was not being where you come in and you seem like you're desperate, or, oh my God, he better phone me again. I think I was just really normal. And I think guys are used to a lot of women who, especially over 35, that are, the clock's ticking.
So
the biological clock is like Big Ben.
I understand.
And Big Ben from where you come from.
Yes, that's also my pet name for my trouser sausage, but let's not go there.
Are you kidding me?
I'm lucky to say yes, I am absolutely kidding you. If anything, it would be medium-sized, Ben. Now, moving on. Let's get back to this programme and sort of perhaps staying around the sexual department, if I may. We have a text in here from someone that says, can I just ask, if you're going to text me on 71010, can you please put your name? Unless, of course, you're embarrassed about this. That could be the reason. This text, don't know if it's a woman or a man, but says, porn is having a negative effect on my relationship. Is this commonplace? Now, the porn phenomena has got somewhat out of control, hasn't it, in the last few years? It's a bit more accessible than ever before. When I was a kid, you have to go and, search around in the bushes somewhere on a housing estate a million miles away just to find one image. Now, of course, it's on all our phones and computers if we want it at any point. Let's start with the simples. Is it all right, porn? Can it perhaps aid a sex life? Or when does it become negative?
Okay, first of all, porn should never be introduced too early in the dating scenario. So unless you're both super into sex, and that can happen. You can meet somebody that they're both really sexual and that's what they want. But that needs to be sort of, I think you usually, if you meet somebody online, you kind of know that about them. So I wouldn't introduce it too quickly unless you've already discussed it. And if you do introduce it, you want to do it like you don't put your Batman outfit, your latex, bring your whip out and surprise them in the living room. I mean, you need to talk about it and find out what they're okay with. If they're into either playing a part of it, watching it, or, sometimes women get offended by it because they feel that the guys only can get turned on because of what's on the television or the internet or whatever they're watching.
Perhaps she doesn't specify, or he or she doesn't specify, but perhaps that's exactly the case here. Isn't it slightly, frankly offensive, isn't it, to, albeit not real though they are, to essentially invite some, 23-year-old blonde into your living room on a daily basis when you've been married to this beautiful woman, beautiful inside and out, one would hope, for decades. How could a woman compete with that?
Well, I think the thing with porn is if you're going to have it in your relationship, it needs to be in very small amounts so that you still feel good with each other, that you don't need to have all this outside stuff to get each other excited. You need to have each other first, and these other little things can just be like a putting the French maid's outfit on one day. It's just something that's just a little added treat to what you already have.
Yeah, don't let it become a lifestyle.
No. Absolutely. It should not be the main course. It should be a little bit of a dessert once in a while.
So you're calling from Vancouver where you do your shenanigans, and one of the problems you find in big cities like Vancouver and here in Toronto is that The dating game goes on a bit longer, which in some ways is nicer because lots of people are still dating in their 30s and 40s, or perhaps they're dating again in their 30s and 40s. One of the problems that I keep getting on email, because I actually put a thing on Facebook saying you were coming on and asked people for questions, and one of the ones that kept coming up was... I, as a man, this is not me, by the way, but a lot of men in Toronto feel that women's expectations are very high. On one side, they want to have this scenario where equal rights, equal pay, particularly in big cities nowadays, which I'm all for, very groovy, liberal, fantastic. But then there becomes a problem when you take these women out and they expect you, the man, to pay. Is that a bit of a contradiction in terms that we're going through?
Yes, and this is where women get mad at me. Because I'm very gender friendly when it comes to both sexes. I do have a problem with women expecting men to pay because I don't think it's right. We are both working for the most part. And it also depends who asks who out. Like, I'm not saying that a man shouldn't, if he says to the woman, I'd like to take you out for a nice dinner, absolutely he should pay. Because, first of all, she may not be able to afford if he takes her to a super expensive place, whatever. But as far as going out, if you're going out somewhere just on your first date, I always suggest a coffee date because it doesn't put pressure financially on anybody.
That's true. Unless you're at Starbucks.
yeah, don't go to Starbucks. Go to I don't know, some hole in the wall or something. Yeah. You're not drinking. So you're actually looking at each other and you're paying attention. So those are the best dates. And
again, actually, if I may speak from experience when I was doing a lot of dating, the good thing about the coffee date is if you don't like them, you don't have to painfully sit through an expensive meal, or not just the money, but the time of spending that time.
Exactly. And if you do like them, you can say, hey, I don't know if you've got plans later. I'm really enjoying this. Would you like to go have a drink somewhere? Then buy a drink if you feel inclined.
Okay, Sue, we're going to keep you on the line because we like you. Can you hang on for a bit?
Okay, sure.
Sue's nice. She's informative. She knows all about dating, relationships and lifestyle. And she has recently written a book called Dear Sybersue. We'll join her back in a minute.
You're tuned in to The Vinney White Show on In-Depth Radio, Newstalk 1010.
Vinney White in for Pay 10. If you've never heard me before, you can catch me from 9 till 10. But I'm in for Pay today. I'm from London. I've lived here for 7 years. And I, like many men, have had a checkered past when it comes to dating. But here to fix up our lives and perhaps not only socially but also in the bedroom is the genius that is, if I can be so bold, the dating, relationship, lifestyle advice talk show host for men and women of all ages. Her name is Sue. Hello, Sue.
Hello.
So, Sue, I'm going to keep these questions pumping in that are coming through on email and text. Because you're very informative and frankly people need some help and guidance. The porn one actually inspired a few people to text in. There's a lot of mums and dads that listen to this show and they've got the difficult teens, and one of the questions that keeps coming up is, how can I police my son and or daughter when it comes to the use of porn? And is it true that if you were to watch it over and over again, you would become desensitised to it? And also, perhaps if you could even expand on that, is that bad? Because that sounds bad. So all of those to you, Sue.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I know there is an app out now. I don't know what it is. I just saw it the other day. My son's older now, so I don't have to sort of pay as close attention to the teenage stuff anymore. But believe me, I was queen of teenage crap that went on. The thing is with the porn, you don't want your teens watching it if you can help it. I really don't know that the technology behind how you can put on things that can stop that. I mean, that's something they'd have to look into an IT guy.
I should imagine
probably.
The thing is, if you pardon the metaphor, but if you put it down in one area, it'll pop up in another, won't it? I mean, if you ban it from their home computers, they've got phones.
Oh, sorry. I had to have my computer fixed a couple of times because of how much stuff was downloaded when I was out of town.
Right.
When I was a single mom. So the thing is, you're not going to be able to curtail it. The best thing for parents that I would suggest, don't don't not talk about it. Don't pretend it's not happening. And because nowadays kids, I mean, back in my day it was probably 16 when things started really happening, maybe 15. Nowadays it's earlier. But if you don't have guidance and you don't have someone that you can talk to about it, everybody thinks their kids know it all, but they don't really. And you have to be on them about it and say, you actually almost have to put them in shock value and just say things to them that, what did my mom and dad just say to me?
Yeah.
And really talk to them about it, because it's not okay that they're sitting there at 15, sitting in front of the computer watching porn. They need to get outside and meet people, have some fun, and get off the frickin' technology stuff.
Okay, well, the problem is, I think that there's a danger that even if you try to please it, even if you're educational, even if you go to your uncomfortable zone as a parent and have to go through talking about it, if they do continue to use it on a regular basis, is there a danger that they'll think that some of the things they see in pornography are daily events? I mean, surely if that's your only exposure to sex, there's a danger that you think that, I don't want to be graphic here, but some of the more extreme things that you might find in pornography, perhaps they're going to think that that's normal.
Absolutely they will. And that's kind of where I had a bit of a problem with, I don't want to get in trouble here, but there's a movie coming out with about a trilogy of books, which you probably know what I'm talking about, and it is talking about how, sort of bad, bratty sort of sex, it's in a red room, I'll just say that much, is okay. So now a lot of young girls are confused, and young guys, because they think this is what everybody wants, is a little bit of this S&M stuff and a bit of the porn stuff that's going on any channel you can find it on. And it's not a good thing, because really sex is if you want to have just sex, that's fine. But most people are not looking for just pure sex unless they're just out of a relationship or whatever. Young kids, teenagers, need to be set in the right direction of what real lovemaking is. I know I don't really like that word.
I quite like it.
You do?
Yeah, I like the act and the word.
Yeah, lovemaking. They need to know what that means. They don't need to just hear the word sex.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I think nowadays, and another thing, if I can be so bold, and this might be good for your parents as well, a lot of girls are confused as to, it seems to be that girls are with other girls all the time, and it's just the norm. And, I think they're confused, and I think this is where a parent or a guardian comes in and just says, some people want to experiment with it, but there's no pressure for you to ever have to do that. And I think a lot of young girls feel the pressure of having to be that diverse sexual creature.
More than ever. I mean, look at in the recent years, ever since when I first saw Britney Spears' video when she was dressed as a schoolgirl, which you could even argue is marginally not offensive compared to Miley Cyrus sitting licking hammers. When I first saw that, I thought, hang on a minute, that's not all right.
I don't think it's all right either.
Yeah.
And I'm not a prude.
That's the thing. I think that's the thing. You've nailed it right there. Neither of us are. I know I'm not. And I wouldn't imagine a relationship and guidance counsellor could afford to be a prude. Sex is all right. I don't mind talking about it. I don't mind seeing it in the right environment. But when it's in the mainstream and it's being really pushed on children in school, and plus all the access to porn of which we've just spoken, what do you think they're going to do? They need some help. Give them a hand. Put them in the right direction.
Absolutely. And never, ever think that it's wrong to talk about it, because they think, they hear it from all their friends. They see it on TV. They read a stupid book that's, it's already out there as a movie that is sitting there talking about how wonderful all this stuff is. No, it's not. The old-fashioned girl meets boy, boy meets girl, everybody appreciates each other, should still be the way that we look at life. We should not be sitting there trying to lure somebody into our world because we're willing to do things that are out of our comfort zone.
Sue McCord, you are a fine woman, an inspiration. And to wrap up, ladies, don't put so much expectations on your men, for goodness sake. And if you're earning a wage, then offer to pay as well. And why don't you just drop your checklists, men and women?
Yes.
Stop being so hard on people. Have a chat with them. And don't hide behind computer screens.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's all right. I was just ranting back everything you said.
Sorry, no, that was perfect. But I'm saying everybody men need to understand women's estrogen, and women need to understand men's testosterone, and understand that we appreciate and love that about each other rather than trying to change each other.
Right. Good. Thank you, Sue.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. Wonderful banter.
It's all right, darling. Thanks for coming on. Sue McCord, you can get her book. Where can you get your book, Dear Sybersue?
You can get it at Smashwords as an ebook and a few other places, and as a paperback, it's on Amazon.com, Amazon.India, Amazon.England.UK. It's available in a lot of places as paperback and ebook. So just type in Dear Sybersue, S-Y, not C-Y, B-E-R-S-U-E to Google, and it's all over.
And it's an advice column that's got some of these gems that have been delivered, all put into a nice, easy-to-read book. Thanks for your time, Sue McCord.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
It was a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Was a pleasure, actually. I really liked her. She's very candid and open and quite clever. Sue McCord there. She's also got a TV show, Leave It to Two Beavers, and she's a relationship and lifestyle advice talk show host. We might get her back on another time. You know, because these questions, they do keep coming up.
This is the Vinney White Show on In Depth Radio, Newstalk 1010.